Hey everybody, welcome to the Monster Workshop. It is me, your friendly neighborhood professional dungeon master, and I'm back after a kind of long weekend visiting some family, and I am ready to crack in on another stream, another episode of Monster Workshop. Today we are working on a particularly famous, particularly influential Dungeons & Dragons monster, and that is the Beholder. But how's everybody doing? Welcome. Come on in. Get comfortable. Please let me know if you can see me and hear me okay. It should be good. I had everything all set up. I just want to make sure, coming back to it, that I'm not a little rusty. Yeah, how's everybody doing? I had a good weekend with my sister, kind of exhausting because she is a very high energy person. And so she always likes to go on hikes, and she likes to run around, and she likes to constantly eat vegetables. She's basically like a humanoid rabbit. And it was very fun, and I had a lot of we did a lot, which was cool. We did a lot of hiking. We went out to a national park, and it was cool to get outside and to do some more active stuff. But when she left, I was just like absolutely exhausted and wanted to do nothing but veg out. So I've been a little slower on social. I've been a little slower in my content the past couple of days. She left on Tuesday, and I kind of took the rest of Tuesday to just sort of flop around. Then I took Wednesday a little bit lighter, and then today I'm trying to slowly get back into things by doing a stream. Yeah, great. Well, it's lovely to be here. It's lovely to be working on this. If you didn't catch it, this show is kind of a companion piece to last week's Monster of the Week episode, which is the podcast that you can check out. Check out the link up above, where week by week we pick a monster from the monster manual, we talk about it, and then we try to come up with some new ideas on how we might redesign that monster. It's been going great so far. I don't know exactly how many episodes we've done. Oh, you know what? I should get my monster manual. It wouldn't be a stream if I didn't forget something. I have my water, but I don't have my monster manual. So let me go and grab that MM, and I'll be back in like 10 seconds. One moment, everybody. One moment. Oh, let's just smack the microphone. That's a great idea. Okay. So let's see. I wanted to see how many episodes of Monster of the Week we have done so far, because we have done alphabetically everything up to Beholder, plus a couple of extras. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think we've done 12 episodes, if you include the Mummy and the Mind Flayer episodes we did with our special guest. I have another special guest episode coming up sometime soon. I'm not sure whether it'll be after, because we'll do Beholder Blight, and then ostensibly I would do a guest, but I might want to get somebody else in there as well, so we'll see how that goes. But today we are going to talk about the Beholder. Again, what I would argue is maybe the most famous Dungeons & Dragons monster that is purely Dungeons & Dragons, right? Not a monster that appears in folklore or mythology or some other established property like an orc, right? The Beholder, I think, along with like the Rust Monster and the Owlbear and the Gelatinous Cube, I think are the four kind of most iconic Dungeons & Dragons monsters. And so it was really fun to get to dive into the Beholder on our last episode and talk about it from a mechanical and lore perspective. And what was tricky about it, what I discovered in working on the Beholder, is that it's actually a pretty good monster design. Like, a lot of the stuff with these workshops is like, what do we see about the 5th edition monster, and what could we do to maybe improve it, make it more dynamic to encounter? And weirdly, I think the Beholder, because of the very nature of how it works with the eye rays, there's not a lot that you can do to it, right? Like, honestly, it's got the anti-magic cone, it's got the bite attack, of course, classic, and then it's got its 10 eye rays and the legendary action to use one of those eye rays. And it's yeah, I mean, it's good. It's just, that's all it needs to have, right? The Beholder in and of itself, I don't think needs a lot of work. You could maybe quibble over exactly which eye rays it has. I did have the idea of, like, it might be kind of fun to, rather than saying, these are the 10 eye rays, right? To say that each Beholder, hey, what's up, Shadow Owner? Thanks for coming. Shadow Owner, excuse me. It could be fun to say, like, each Beholder has 10 of these 30 options, right? And then you roll like 3 minor ones and 3 medium ones and 3 major ones. And then, there's like one it always has, like Death or Disintegration or maybe Charm, one of the easier ones, right? That could be kind of cool. But otherwise, I think, but that, that you could do that, but that also implies a campaign with a bunch of different beholders in it, and like, man, who cares? So I think what we're going to focus on today is not the beholder, but actually the Death Tyrant and the Spectre, which are the kind of two variant beholders that are included in the 5th edition Monster Manual. Anyone who knows their D&D lore knows that the Beholder historically, and we talk about this in the podcast, has had a lot of different iterations. I think the term is Beholderkin, usually, and they're kind of associated with 2nd edition, and there's a lot of different versions. 5th edition has kind of started to creep several of those in, mainly through Xanathar's Guide to Everything, has a couple more, the Mind Witness being one, and the Gouth, which I don't know anything about, really those two. But of the ones presented here, there are 2 additional beholder types. There's the Spectator, which is kind of a CR3, much smaller servitor beholder that kind of is supposed to be like a tomb guardian and protecting subterranean places. And then there's the Death Tyrant, which I think is kind of the beholder's answer to like the Dracolich, right? Or the Alhoun, like a famous monster that tries to become a lich. The Death Tyrant isn't explicitly a lich. It's basically just like an undead beholder that, according to the lore, dreams itself into a state of undeath, which I think is a little bit meh, lore-wise. But let's kind of break these down. I think problem number 1 is we're gonna start with the Death Tyrant, and the issue is here. I'm looking at the page right now, page 28 of the 5th edition Monster Manual, right? And you've got your Beholder on one side and your Death Tyrant on the other, and like they are basically the same monster. That's sort of my first complaint, is that the only real difference between the Death Tyrant and the Beholder is that the Death Tyrant has a different eye ray, and it has a couple of condition immunities, and it's got 7 more hit points and 1 more armor class for some reason. Yep, that's it. Oh, and all the DCs on all of the rays are DC 1 higher. It's the same monster, right? There's nothing about the Death Tyrant, apart from the negative energy cone, that is really all that distinct, from an actual beholder. So this is the issue that I have, right? Is that like I love the idea of saying, okay, this is an undead version of an established monster, but the trick of how you tackle that, I think, is the real question. Initially in the podcast, I discussed the idea of like a template, kind of like the Dracolich has, right, where you just like apply this to an existing dragon or the Shadow Dragon, right? And that was initially my idea, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that like that doesn't really work either, because beholders don't have, there's no like distinction between different types of beholders. If you took my earlier idea and you said, okay, you can randomize the eye rays on the beholder, then a Death Tyrant template could make some sense. But we don't have that, so we're not going to go with it. What we're going to do instead is I think we're going to redesign the Death Tyrant a little bit, basically by coming up with a few eye rays that are unique to the Death Tyrant, right? We can ratchet up the CR a little bit, maybe go to CR 16, something like that, right? And we can say, okay, when the beholder dies and becomes the Death Tyrant, it changes a number of its eye rays in particular ways. Which ones they are, I don't know. We'll brainstorm that. But I think that the negative energy cone is good. The legendary actions are fine. I don't want to overcomplicate the monster, but I think by doing a palette swap on a few of the eye rays, we can give it at least some sense that it's a different monster and deserves to have its own stat block, right? That would be my suggestion. Although the more I talk about it, the more I think that like, hey, here's a list of 30 eye rays. You can randomly swap these in is kind of cool. So maybe we will do that. I don't know. We'll see how long this takes. So that's problem number 1. That's maybe the biggest thing we're going to tackle is coming up with, I would say like 3 to 5 unique eye rays for the beholder, for the Death Tyrant. And then there's the Spectator. The Spectator baffles me because when I first saw it and I first kind of glimpsed it, I sort of assumed that it was just like a smaller, lesser beholder, often, like a servitor to a greater beholder. And if I knew my beholder lore, I knew that that's not obviously the case, because beholders are, sort of inherently solitary and jealous creatures, and they wouldn't like suffer another beholder to be anywhere near them. But there's no real explanation here as to what on earth the Spectator is. So the conceit is that it is summoned, well, I mean, they explain it, but why it is this way. It's summoned from another plane by a spellcaster, and then it serves as a tomb guardian, right? And the idea is that over time, they can live for super long, 101 years is how long they're supposedly, bound for. And over the course of that time, they develop a bunch of weird quirks because they kind of live by themselves, dwelling in this tomb. And then once they're fulfilled their service, they're free to do as they please. And they just kind of roam around and do whatever. But they also have a couple of random abilities. They have 4 eye rays. They have create food and water, which I think the implication is that they can make food for themselves, which makes sense in the context of them being tomb guardians, but they aren't naturally tomb guardians. They are summoned to do that job. So why would they randomly have the ability to make food and water when no other beholder has that power? Is that something the spellcaster gives them? It's not clear. And then they also have a spell reflection ability, where if they get targeted by a spell and it either misses or they make their save, they can redirect the spell back to somebody else. Also a weird power that no other beholder has, and there's no clear indication as to why it has this power. It just sort of does. So I don't love the Spectator, because I feel like it's a cool idea that just is completely disconnected from beholder ecology. But assuming you want to keep the rough concept of these guys as smaller, sort of ever-vigilant tomb guardians, I think what I would do is I would say that we could co-opt the beholder reproduction cycle and say that the way that beholders reproduce, right, is that they dream up another beholder, right, that is bigger and more powerful than them, and then it kills them, and now it's the new beholder, right? So you could do spectators as, lesser beholders that the beholder dreams up. And if you want to keep the kind of megalomaniacal angle where the beholder views any other beholder besides itself to be a horrible abomination, a spectator could be a tiny, perfect replica of the original beholder that is subservient to the original beholder's whim. Maybe you could have a plot line where a spectator kind of overthrows the original beholder, whatever it is. But then the Tomb Guardian angle is that there's a way that arcane spellcasters can induce this dream on themselves and make spectators that are bound to them, right? And so then they can kind of serve almost like familiars or something like that, right? If they can kind of hack into the beholder dream state and pluck one of these spectators out. And that's sort of the way you kind of have your cake and eat it too. The tricky thing though is that there's not a lot of redesign that really needs to be done on the spectator. That's largely lore. I would lose the create food and water thing because I just don't think it matters. The idea of a beholder eating something isn't impossible to imagine, but I just wasn't worried about how they ate or drank. I just wasn't, and it also presages the idea of okay, they make food, but if they make water, then do they use telekinesis? They don't have telekinesis. So do they make an orb of water in the air and then open their mouth and it falls? It's just who cares? This isn't interesting and it wastes space on the stat block. And then there's the spell reflection thing, which it's a cool power, but again has nothing to do with anything. My only other instinct is to maybe reframe the spell reflection as a central eye ability in some way. I don't know exactly how that would work, but it does feel at least a little bit more in line with the beholder ecology. But again, if you're saying that we are downstream of, that this is actually a dream spawn of another beholder, then why does it have a different eye power, right? So again, I don't generally love the spectator, but in the spirit of trying to find a way to make all of the monsters work, that's my suggestion. And then our last problem, I think, are the Lair and legendary actions for both the Beholder and the Death Tyrant. It's cool that they have them. It's interesting that they feel the need to make them different, right? That a Beholder and a Death Tyrant apparently are different enough that they should have different legendary actions, but mechanically really aren't different enough at all. So if we're going to lean into that and say that they both have different ones, then we want to redesign the Lair actions and regional effects for both of these. Now, I don't think they're all bad. I think it's kind of a 50-50. So, let's see. So for the Beholder, we have the 50-foot square of ground within 120 feet of the Beholder becomes slimy. It's covered in slime, becomes difficult terrain. I don't hate that. Pretty good. It has walls within 120 feet of the Beholder sprout grasping appendages. This one baffles me. So they're like tentacles that come out and grab you. But tentacles aren't a Beholder thing. They have eye stalks, I guess, but eye stalks can't grab you. It feels very kind of lazy, Lovecrafty, they're aberrations, so I don't know, tentacles? And it grabs you and holds you there, and then it's got This last one is an eye opens on a solid surface in 60 feet of the beholder, and it shoots a random eye ray. That one I actually really kind of like, because it plays into the eye stuff. It plays into the idea of the randomness, right? That like it's not something that would be targeted, and it doesn't even necessarily feel like the beholder is intentionally doing that. It might just be like a random, effect of the beholder being in combat in its lair. And then its regional effects are creatures within 1 mile of the beholder's lair sometimes feel here. You know what? I can actually switch this over. Why am I reading it out loud? I can bring us over here. So it's a little hard to read, right, because of how I positioned the beholder. But for regional effects, they sometimes feel as though they're being watched when they aren't. Pretty good. And then when the beholder sleeps, minor warps in reality occur within 1 mile of its lair and then vanish 24 hours later. So marks on cave walls might change subtly, an eerie trinket might appear where none existed before, harmless slime might coat a statue, and so on. These effects apply only to natural surfaces and to non-magical objects that aren't on anyone's person. Yeah, Chatter says it's because they don't have their own appendages. They have tentacle envy, so they have to grow them on the walls. Yeah. Maybe that's the way that they grab stuff and move them around, is by activating a lair action. Although it does say while fighting inside its lair. So this beholder one, this minor reality thing, I think is interesting, but I think is not enough. It's not dramatic enough. I would almost want to extend this way out into kind of a WandaVision thing, where whenever the beholder sleeps, you get like a Groundhog's Day effect or something, right? Or there are like changes in the area that like the tunnels of the lair rearrange. Or whatever, that like it can, because its dreams affect reality. I think you should really, really push that all the way out to the walls, right? Like imagine a town that is within a mile of a beholder's lair, right? And this dream thing, like when it dreams, it then like rearranges all the buildings and all the people in the town, right? And no one in the town knows that this has happened. Right, but if you're visiting the town, you might get like wrapped up in this and then become sort of now I'm the baker, right? Like crazy stuff like that. That's pretty far flung in terms of ideas, but imagine the adventure of that, right? It's like, okay, obviously there's a beholder nearby that's making this thing happen. We have to find it, right? And we have to convince the people of the town that, they're caught in this endless cycle whenever the beholder sleeps. I mean, the Xanathar in Waterdeep has a dream nullifier to prevent him from dreaming up, his replacements. But I love the idea of that as an adventure. The dream nullifier stops working for a period. They're trying to repair it, and it's causing like a neighborhood underneath the beholder's lair to do this weird WandaVision effect over and over again, right? Where it's constantly shifting around, or it's jumping in time, or doing some crazy stuff, right? Like, if beholders can change reality with their dreams, you should really lean into that, as opposed to like, oh, some slime might cover a statue. Come on. This is a beholder we're talking about. And then we have the Death Tyrant, is the other one whose legendary and lair actions could use a little bit of souping up. So the lair actions for the Death Tyrant, I think, are worse than the beholder. So they're trying to do, the first one, an area that is a 50-foot cube within 120 feet of the tyrant is filled with spectral eyes and tentacles. Yep, we're back to this. So they're trying to do lightly obscured and difficult terrain again. So it's very similar to the beholder's one with the slime. But again, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do slime. Is they can see just that because it's a Death Tyrant doesn't have any skin, it can't have slime? I don't know. And then walls sprout spectral appendages within 100. This is that same one, right? This is the one, the spectral appendages. The appendages are spectral, and they reach onto the ethereal plane. Meh, not super interesting. And then they have the same one. The spectral eye opens in the air at a point within 50 feet of the tyrant, which I think is, this one's good. This one is the same as the beholder. I think it's okay to have some similarity, but it I don't know. It just feels like it's the same 3 legendary actions, but with like ghosts, right? Which, meh, don't love it. Regional effects, once again, creatures within 1 mile of the tyrant's lair sometimes feel as if they're being watched, even when they aren't. And yeah, when a creature hostile to the tyrant and aware of its existence finishes a long rest within 1 mile of the tyrant's lair, roll a d20 for that creature. On a roll of 10 or lower, the creature is subjected to 1 random eye ray of the tyrant. And that one makes no sense to me. So imagine playing this out. So you're within 1 mile of the lair and you take a long rest, which already kind of a specific scenario. Then you roll a d20, and there's a good chance that you roll above it. There's like a 50% chance, or maybe like a 45% chance or whatever that you roll above it. And if you do, then nothing happens. But if you don't, let's say you roll a d10, now you have to roll another d10. Let's say you roll a 10, you have to roll another d10 to figure out which one of these eye rays it is. And then let's say it's like Fear Ray, right? So then they have to make a save. And do they just wake up frightened? Do they see an eye ray appear and shoot them? You know, what if it's disintegration? Do they just disintegrate for no reason? Because that seems pretty heinous to me. I don't know. I don't understand how that would play out. Has anyone tested that? That seems very weird. Even if it was like, okay, an eye appears on a wall and zaps them, fine. But it's extremely specific, extremely corner case, and then it doesn't explain what happened. Like, you could just wake up and be disintegrated or dead. Like, it could just be Death Ray, and you just don't wake up. You just die. No, thank you. That's a bad one. I don't care for that one. So yeah, we have a lot of work to do with the regional effects and layer actions for the beholders. That's basically where I'm at with it. So great, that's kind of our task for today. It took half an hour to explain the task, so there's quite a bit to do. But I kind of think this one, nah, we might lose. I might instead do that randomized beholder list of eye rays, because I think that's kind of fun. But it would require us to think of a bunch of additional eye rays. So let's start there. Let's start with the Death Tyrant. I have one down here. So I apologize for these stat blocks. I had to pluck them off D&D Beyond because TetraCube doesn't have them. Yeah, the Tyrant Regional Eyes broke. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't understand what the intentionality is there. Very weird. I had to pluck these off D&D Beyond because TetraCube, the website I normally use to make monster stat blocks, doesn't have the Beholder because it is protected by Wizards. They also didn't have the Mind Flare, which we did last week, but I was able to input that on my own, and it wasn't so bad. I just didn't have the time or the gumption to go and input the entirety of the Beholder or the Death Tyrant. That way we could putz with it. So we're just going to brainstorm some ideas for eye rays and how they might work, and then we'll go from there. So for the Death Tyrant, I kind of like the idea of keeping 5 of the eye rays and swapping out 5 of the eye rays. So, Death Tyrant eye rays. So let's talk about which ones we have and which ones we want to get rid of. So to me, it seems obvious that anything that deals necrotic damage we keep. So we definitely keep Death Ray, and we definitely keep Enervation Ray. Let's go put them in order of how severe they are. Enervation Ray. The rest of the options, and I'll bold the ones we know we're keeping. Death Ray and Enervation Ray for sure. So we want to keep 3 more. Our options are Charm Ray, Paralyzing Ray, Fear Ray, Slowing Ray, and then Telekinetic Ray. Oh, it's after Enervation Ray. Telekinetic Ray. Sleep Ray. Petrification Ray. Disintegration Ray. Death Ray. So these are the 10. I want to keep 5 of these and come up with 5 other ones, or 3 other. Yeah, I want to get rid of. I want to keep 3 of them. Come up with 5. 3 more. So of these, I think Fear Ray makes sense for a Death Tyrant. I think we can keep Fear. I feel like we can't keep Petrification, Disintegration, and Death. I'm trying to think of those 2. Like, which one is, if we keep either of those 2 or none of them. Ooh, I have an idea for one. New eye ray ideas. I wanted to look and actually see what the Spectator has. Because the Spectator also has Confusion, right? And Wounding. So Enervation never made tons of sense to me because it's basically just a bunch of necrotic damage. It's less necrotic damage than the Death Ray, and there's no chance of it killing you, but it's different from the wounding ray. You want to keep petrification for the Death Tyrant? I kind of agree with Shadowrunner. I think the petrification fits less in the death theme. I don't mind them keeping a few of the classic ones, but I don't think they can keep petrification and disintegration. But disintegration to me always felt kind of similar to death, so petrification is different. Yeah, if you allow for it. I can't decide there, because petrification, I agree, it is kind of against the death angle, right? But disintegration is also, I almost want to keep neither of them. You know what we could do is we could say the Death Ray. What if the Death Ray is like 9 to 10? Right? What if it's more likely to use its Death Ray, and that's one of the reasons that it's scarier, right? I mean, we could honestly even reduce, I don't know if I want to go this far, but we can honestly even reduce its eye rays way down and say that it's got, 5 of them. They don't all come through. So that's an option. But I don't think either petrification or disintegration make tons of sense for the Death Tyrant. I think disintegration is closer because it is death, right? Like it's specifically that'll turn you into dust and you can't, be resurrected or whatever, unless you have true resurrection. I think we're gonna keep disintegration because, yeah, but here's the thing: neither of them let the Death Tyrant reanimate you, right? The only way to kill somebody in that space is to do Death Ray or Enervation Ray to the point where they take that much damage. I mean, I guess Disintegration Ray you could deal a bunch of damage, but if you reduce it to 0, you become fine grade dust. I kind of want to lose them both. Isn't that weird? I kind of want to lose them both. Oh, you're right, Shadowrunner. Yeah. So I can't fire it more than once. I kind of think we lose them both. I know that seems crazy. So let's do this. Let's keep Slowing Ray. I like that. I don't think Charm makes sense. I don't like Paralyzing. I think Telekinetic Ray is necessary for it to function, right? To like open doors and pick up items and stuff. So I think it keeps Fear, Slowing, Enervation, Telekinetic, and Death, right? But then I think we give it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other ones. So one of the ones I was thinking about was Enfeebling Ray. Which is kind of like Enervate, because like in theory it's Enervation Ray, but Enervation Ray doesn't actually enervate you; it just deals necrotic damage to you, right? So I wonder if we do one that's like, isn't there a spell called Enfeeble? Ray of Enfeeblement? Yeah, and that's a necrotic spell, right? So Enfeebling Ray. Enfeebling Ray. Let me pull up go get my player's handbook and look up the spell, because that seems like an easy and like a relatively low level one, right? Like that could replace Charm or Paralyzing. I'll be right back. Player's handbook. Gotcha. Oh, hold on. Stand by. Okay. Player's handbook. Enfeebling Ray. Ray of Enfeeblement, I believe. Hey, Lex, what's up? Ooh, aging. Yeah, that's so good. Ooh, yeah, what about what if Enfeebling Ray, rather than working like Ray of Enfeeblement, what if it does that shadow thing where it sucks like it eats away at your strength, right? That's kind of cool. Ray of Enfeeblement. It hits a target, deals only half damage with weapon attacks that use strength until the spell ends. Yeah, that's meh. I'm meh about that. I do, however, like the idea of the shadow thing. Aging Ray is awesome. That's really cool. So maybe Aging Ray is the lowest level one because it doesn't actually mechanically affect you, right? Unless you're a Aarakocra, I guess. So let's get the shadow. I want to see how that does it. You could call it Draining Ray. and the target strength score is reduced by 1d4. And then again, the target dies if it reduces it to this. So that would be, what do we think? Constitution save? Yeah. What's, I keep opening and closing the books that I need. I almost want to look at other, ooh, what about a white thing, right? Where, yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, Lex, we were having the same idea. Yeah, reduce max HP instead of deal damage. Yep. Drain stat. Yep. Cool, I love that. Ray of Enfeeblement. I was trying to think of other undead that can do this. So it's a ranged attack, but all of these are saving throws, right? Like the Beholder does saving throws, it doesn't do ranged attacks. So I think Enfeebling Ray is a strength saving throw. The target's strength score, I think it's reduced by 2d4. By 2d4. The target dies if this reduces their hit points to 0. Yeah. Otherwise, the reduction lasts until they finish a short or long. We might just say until they finish a long rest. Because, you know, we're like talking about a CR16 Beholder at this point. Aging Ray. So, with Horrifying Visage, my understanding is that it doesn't actually have a mechanical effect. I like that. I think that's cool, and I want to keep it. But I don't know that it necessarily is all that powerful on its own. Because it's usually, like, attached to another effect, right? Like a fear. So we could staple it to fear, but I think it's kind of cool if it's on its own, right? Withering Ray, maybe. Yeah, the target ages 1d4 times 10 years. Wisdom saving throw. Wisdom saving throw. On a failure, the target ages 1d4 times 10 years. I think that's this one. Aging Ray replaces Charm Ray. Ooh, makes the target ethereal. Ooh, that's fun. I like that. That's cool. I mean, if we get enough of these, I think we can maybe swap out some of the old ones, you know? Like, I don't love Slowing Ray. I say we lose Slowing, and we put in one of these fun ones. Okay, let's just keep making ideas before we get too far along, because, so we have the white life drain, so Draining Ray, maybe? I like the ethereal one. These are great, Lex. White. Draining Ray. What? Ooh, Vampiric Ray? Yeah, that's cool. So it's a Constitution save. Banishing Ray is cool, too. So, yeah, let me write down, like, new Beholder Rays. Because you mentioned, yeah, I like banishing. Because I think that would be cool to make a big table of like, hey, if you want to personalize your Beholder, here are a bunch of alternate Ray ideas, right? I think we can make the Life Drain and the Vampiric Ray the same one. Mummy Rot Ray, oh god! So, let's see. Life Drain, on a failure, the targets. So do they take damage? Yeah. So X necrotic damage, and on a failure, and the target's life total is reduced by that much. In addition, yeah, charisma save, cool. Because they're always wisdom and charisma, right? Maybe dex. In addition, the beholder, the Death Tyrant, regains hit points equal to the amount of damage taken. Regains hit points equal to the amount of damage taken. This reduction lasts until the target finishes a long rest. Yeah, cool. Vampiric Ray. I'm gonna look up Mummy Rod as an option. But Banishing is great. I don't know that it works for the Death Tyrant, but I like it as a variant Beholder Ray. Because it feels a little more arcane, a little wackier. Slowing Raw. Yeah, if we can get enough of these, then we'll do that. We won't have to. The more I think we can replace, the cooler the Death Tyrant will seem. What am I looking at? Mummies. Yeah, now I'm just thinking of like other undead, right? Mummy Lord. Can't regain hit points. Its hit point maximum is reduced by 10. Yeah, its body turns to dust. It's kind of disintegrate. You know? I mean, Mummification Ray is kind of cool for disintegration. Desiccation Ray? Like it pulls out all your water. I kind of like Mummification Ray. Nah, we'll do Desiccation. Desiccation Ray? Now, I'm trying to figure out how is it different from Vampiric Ray. It can't regain hit points. And its maximum decreases by that for every... Is it per round? Right? It's like ongoing damage? Like you're slowly being desiccated? I kind of like that. Yeah. So this maybe replaces Disintegration Ray. Where the Beholder can't animate you because you turn into dust. But it's like you get all the moisture like sucked out of you. So it's a Constitution save again. Constitution save, so many of them. You take it's like a small amount of necrotic, or yeah, X necrotic damage. Next round. They take like 2x necrotic damage. The third round, they are reduced to dust. So it's kind of like a combination of petrification and disintegration, where it's like, if you look at how petrification works, right? It's like your first turn to this, and then you make a save, and then you turn to this, right? Like, I think it's like 2d6. Well, I think it's like 2d6 necrotic, and then, you know, it's 4d6 necrotic or whatever. But I think you improve those numbers. I think it's like 4d6 necrotic, and then the next round you take 8d6 necrotic, and then the next round you reduce to dust, right? So you're just like slow. It's not instant like disintegration. It's like you like wither away, right? So it's not maybe as powerful as disintegration. But I kind of like the idea of it taking longer, you know. So it's something like that. I don't know exactly what the numbers would be, but it's twice X, 2x. You can tell I've been playing a lot of Magic lately. That's cool. Okay. So we have Aging, Enfeebling, Vampiric, and Desiccation. We really only need one more idea, and then we can have 5, right? If we keep slowing. So what are some other undead that do spooky stuff? We have a Fear Race. We don't need a Banshee. I'm just going to look. What does the Demi-Lich have? Life Drain, Energy Drain, Vile Curse. The Curse is interesting. That could be kind of a lower level one, right? Like they have disadvantage on... Ooh, like a Bane? A Baneful Ray? Where they have like disadvantage on all stuff. Baneful Ray. Or they subtract a d4 or something, right? It's a curse. How do those work? Bane is like a... Wisdom saving throw? Charisma? I feel like it should be charisma, because it's like your force of will, but it's probably wisdom, because everything is wisdom. Flame Skull, yeah, does fire, right? Bane. It is charisma, haha. So I like Baneful because it's charisma, right? Charisma saving throw. On a failure, the target has disadvantage on all attacks. I think it's like attacks, checks, and saves for 1 minute. Save ends the effect, right? So they're just like, they're cursed. I think it's cool. Yeah, I think that's good then. So I think we do Aging Ray. It doesn't really do much. I think Baneful Ray takes the place of Paralyzing Ray. Because it sucks, but it doesn't really damage you, right? Replaces Paralyzing Ray. Plop that in there. Fear Ray we keep. I think we do Enfeebling Ray. Blinding Ray is good too, actually. That's a good one for here. Blinding Ray. Enfeebling Ray replaces Slowing Ray. Oh no, we were gonna keep Slowing Ray. Yeah, unless we can think of another death-related one. Slowing Ray. I like the Aging one because it ooh, Sickening Ray. Sickening Ray is pretty good. Let's look at it. Contagion. I almost opened to do it. Yeah, I don't want to send somebody into the monster. I don't want to send somebody in here. But I like the idea of... I kind of like that idea of saying, like, they're affected by the spell Contagion. I mean, like, one that gives them... Yeah, but I guess that would be... Is it too much? Yeah, no, because we already have the Baneful Ray. But, like, Sickening Ray is interesting if the conceit is that it makes them fail all Constitution saving throws, right? Or something like that. Where they, like, it, like, sets them up for future, for death and for, you know, vampiric and for some of these nastier desiccation. Things like that. Ooh, like a Madness Ray isn't bad either, right? That's a good one, I think, for Mind Flare. Blinding Ray. Insanity Ray! I mean, Freezing Ray, I think, is good. I guess you have Paralysis. Contagion is too complicated, but which one? So Blinding Sickness, Filth Fever, Flesh Rot. Ooh, Vulnerability to all damage is pretty good. Ugh. God, what would you call that? Like, not Necrotic Ray, obviously, but like, something like Necrosis. But something that, yeah, makes your skin, like, sickening, like Leprous Ray? Ugh. That's horrible. Yeah, we're doing Leprous. Leprous Ray. Constitution saving throw. The creature has, on a failure, you have disadvantage on charisma saving throws, which is not going to come up, but Baneful, right? Saving throws and gain vulnerability to all damage. Maybe just to necrotic damage. Right? Save ends the effect. That's, ugh, it's horrible. So I think Enfeebling, we're gonna get rid of Slowing, and we're gonna make this Enfeebling Ray. Enfeebling Ray replaces Slowing Ray. And then Strength saving throw, cool. And Enervation we're keeping, that one we're keeping, and then we'll do Leprous here. Leprous Ray. replaces Sleep Ray. Constitution saving throw on a failure. Target has disadvantage on charisma. Nice job, Lex. That's a great idea. We'll do Vampiric over Petrification. Replaces Petrification Ray. I have no idea how powerful this makes the monster also. Like, who knows? This is just the fun brainstorming phase. And then we'll do Desiccation Ray. Which replaces Disintegration. Disintegration Ray. Okay. Cool. Yeah, sweet. I think those are all great. I like that it gives it a couple of other choices on ways it can kill you, right? Like it can wear you down with I guess it could kill you through aging. It can wear you down with enfeebling. Leprous can makes it much more likely that you die from one of the other effects like enervation or death. Right, Vampiric Ray, similarly. The target dies if this reduces the target to 0 hit points, right? Like if it drinks you dry, then you come back as a zombie in the That's cool. That feels so much more undead, right? Like that wasn't that hard actually. I was worried about it because I was like, you know, these are the eye rays. How do you mess with them? But like that was easy. Okay, cool. Great. That's the Death Tyrant. So I will punch all that in on my own time, just because of the weird way Tetracube works and the, you know, the legal stuff surrounding the Beholder. Great. So I think we did this. Nice job, everybody. Let's talk about. So I'll put this out as a blanket statement. If anyone has any more ideas for eye rays, go ahead and shoot them. Let me know, shoot them at me, right? Fire them off randomly. These would be like ideas for eye rays for the standard Beholder, right? Like if we want to make a big table of like, you know, you can replace eye rays with these eye rays. This would be the place to put them. I'm gonna put Lightning Ray on there. I think Fire Ray could also exist as well. Do we put Freezing? Freezing Ray. And Fire Ray and Lightning Ray. I don't want to go too far with those, right? I mean, you could put Acid Ray on there as well. But it would be cool to have like 30 total, so that way, you know, there's a good chance your Beholder is different from another Beholder. But the Spectator we're going to talk about right now, and I don't know that this is necessarily one that's going to take tons of time, but I want to address like the spell reflection thing, because I feel like spell reflection is dumb as it's written. Like, it makes sense to bundle it under. It makes sense to put it under reactions. That's ostensibly what it is. But what I don't understand is why that's a thing, right? Like, I don't understand why it has that. What is it about being a spectator that makes it reflect spells? It just seems random to me. Whereas, if we could find some way to bundle it into the eye, like the central eye, that would be cool. One thing I think you could do, Shadowrunner, to make it feel for elemental damage is you could find little ways to say like, oh, okay, actually the yeah, no anti-magic cone, right? But it just feels like you could come up with it with a central eye power that's more interesting and at least feels more like, okay, it's a Beholder, so it has random eye rays. And even the Spectator doesn't have to do them randomly, right? It can choose which one it wants to use. So it just barely, it feels like a Beholder in name only. You know what I mean? It looks like a Beholder and it's got a couple of eye rays and that's it. So to me, it feels like spell reflection, if you want to do it, it's got to in some way. Like, what if spell reflection gets redone? Right, let's scroll back down here. Okay, sorry, I was saying two different things at once. So I think one thing you could do with these is that they could freeze the creature in place. Like, give them little, you know, light the creature on fire. Chain to another creature. And then, like, dissolve the creature's equipment, right? You could make it a little bit more fun like that. Is summoned via several beholder eye stalks. Ooh, that's gross. Yeah, for the summon, for the ritual, that's neat. For spectator. So what if it's like this? What if it's not spell reflection? What if the central eye has a spell absorption power? When someone casts a spell or misses, when the spectator makes the saving throw, of a spell, or makes a saving throw of a spell, or succeeds, or is missed by a spell attack, it absorbs the spell into its central eye. It can then like fire the spell back at a target within a 60-foot cone, right? That it can catch it and then redirect it. That it's not a matter of it just like ricocheting off instantly, because that doesn't make any sense. But if it's looking at you and you're in its eye and you cast a spell at it, it can absorb that spell, right? So it still matters where the thing's looking and what its like central eye is doing, right? Maybe it's 30-foot cone or something like that to make it easier to fight, right? But it's like you want to make sure it's not looking at you when you want to cast Fireball, because if it's looking at you, it's the same thing. It doesn't just nullify it. It's that if you miss it, it can eat it and shoot it back. So it's not as powerful as anti-magic, because it doesn't just like remove the existence of the thing, but there's a chance it's still reflection-y, and the beholder could store it for multiple rounds and then shoot it in a different direction at somebody else or whatever, right? Like it's more about its eye and less about the fact that it weirdly has like a ricochet shield. Ooh, Amnesia Ray is awesome. That's so good. Yeah, you're thinking about Lacuna, right? From Secrets of Sharn. That's awesome. Yeah, Amnesia Ray is rad. I don't know how you do that. They forget spell slots, maybe? Spell slots. That's so good. Or prepared spells, yeah. Forget prepared spells. Prepared spells. That's rad. But yeah, I think if it has the central eye thing, and then we just remove create food and water, I think that feels more like a beholder. That's honestly all we really needed to do. Okay, cool. And then lastly, let's talk about the lair actions and regional effects for both beholders, because again, I feel like these could use a lot of work as well. So let's go over here and let's go into beholder lair actions. So I think for this, we need to come up with, let's look at it again. Let me make sure you guys can see that. Where's the best place to frame it? We go like that. There we go. Silly. Okay, let me minimize this so it's not too delayed. So I think the slime work. I think a 50-foot square area of ground works, right? I think the first one is fine. So I think we only need one beholder lair effect, and I think we need one beholder regional effect, but really, you know, it's just a rewording. Lair action is one, and then we need beholder regional effect one. And then Death Tyrant lair action. I think we need two for that. If I'm remembering correctly, because I don't like this one, and I don't like this one. So we need two for that, and then we need one for the regional effect. Okay. So we need to come up with a total of like 5. Or just formatting. Beholder or Death Tyrant regional effect. Let me know if that's like off the screen and you guys can't see it. Okay, so for the beholder lair action, we need to think of one of them. And this one I think is honestly might be the hardest one to think of. So the first one creates difficult terrain. Okay, which is going to slow people down. The second one which we're losing, would have grabbed you and held you there, right? Which would have slowed you. Well, it would have stopped your motion, right? And then the last one shoots you with a random eye ray. So one of them is like a free kind of attack. One of them is difficult terrain. I don't hate the idea of the Beholder. Ooh, Foresight's kind of cool. I don't hate the idea of the Beholder grabbing you or stopping your movement in some way, but I don't like the framing of random tentacles sprout from the ground. You know what I'm saying? So what about I'm not sure how Foresight would work. They're not particularly like, you know, good prognosticators. They dream, you know, like reality warping stuff I don't hate, but I don't really want to do tentacles because that doesn't really feel on brand for the Beholder. I'm trying to think of like WandaVision stuff, like Scarlet Witch stuff, right? How do we stop them? How do we move them? Does everybody swap places or something like that, right? Like, I guess that's good for like grid combat. But I want to do like gravity reverses. Yeah, what if gravity reverses in the lair for a round and everyone gets thrown up onto the ceiling and then they come back down again? I kind of like that, right? Like a gravity reversal. I don't mind Foresight. I'm trying to figure out what that would be. Gravity reversal. Because like the Beholder flies, right? So it doesn't matter. The Beholder doesn't care, right? Walls within 120 feet. Like that dream effect. Yeah. It's just like, I think that stuff happens. I mean, I guess this is kind of cheating. But like, I like the lair. I like gravity because it seems to play with the idea of the Beholder making their lair in 3 dimensions. Like not having floors and not having, you know, like there's no such thing as a ceiling or a floor to a Beholder. There's no such thing as up and down. So like I like what that does. I almost have to like look up a spell or something, right? Because I know that there's gravity effects in Graviturgy, that they have gravity effects in like Wild Mount, right? Under the Wizard. Honestly, I think it's easier just to say like, yeah, the gravity in the Beholder's lair reverses suddenly. Yeah, reverse gravity. Is that the name of the spell? Because reverse gravity does sound better than gravity reversal. Although I guess we wouldn't call it that, right? Because it would just say the gravity in the Beholder's lair reverses suddenly. Reverse gravity. Cool, yeah, it's a spell. Beautiful. All creatures or objects that aren't somehow anchored to the ground fall upward and reach the top of the area when you cast a spell. Then yeah, make a dexterity check. You just like copy that text. I kind of like that, you know? And it's like, it's something that could happen repeatedly, you know? Make a dexterity saving throw to grab onto a fixed object, thus avoiding the fall. I kind of think that's plenty. What else to say? If some solid object, strike it just as they would. Yeah, we'll just copy the whole thing. It's a little wordy. But I kind of think that's right. Cool. I dig it. So then for the regional effect, it's not that I necessarily want to change it. I want to rewrite it. I want it to be a little bit more explicit. So let's see how it's actually worded. When the beholder sleeps, warps in we'll go major warps in reality rather than minor warps. When the beholder sleeps, major warps in reality occur within 1 mile. 1 mile of its lair and then vanish 24 hours later. So let's go and let's see. The walls and tunnels, the passages of its lair, passages and tunnels of its lair, rearrange, towns and villages within the area. Ooh, that's cool. Make it like more dangerous. The pits and spikes. That's awesome. I love that idea. Shadowhunter, like, it knows it can do that, right? So it throws them up there onto the spikes. I mean, yeah, I can see there being a thing too where it's like the beholder's lair has a bunch of spikes on the floor, and you're like, okay, why would this be a problem? And like the beholder could telekinetically grab you and then drop you onto the spikes, but I also like the idea that it's like there's spikes on the floor and the ceiling when you come into the room. You have to kind of like work your way through them, and then it reverses gravity. You're like, oh no, and then it does it again, right? That's awesome. I love that. It's very devious. A village in the area might have all of its citizens swapping identities overnight. Or all the townsfolk in a nearby village might swap identities overnight. The weather in the region might suddenly swing wildly. The climate in the region might suddenly swing wildly. You know, it's something like that. I don't know exactly how you would phrase it. You might want to like bound it a little bit, but the idea being that like, yeah, you get this strange, like within a mile of the lair, this kind of stuff can happen, right? If you're up in the Arctic, suddenly it's tropical for a day, right? It's like, what is the beholder dreaming about, right? I think you just make it much more explicit. Like, that to me really feels like an adventure hook, whereas like, ooh, there's minor changes on the cave wall is not. Ugh. Okay, let's talk about the lair actions for the Death Tyrant. Okay, so we gotta fix this first one. It's a difficult terrain. Right. Oh, I wanted to check the Lich's lair action because I feel like, you know, it's not that hard to say like a bunch of dead get reanimated, ghosts or whatever, right? Like it creates. Yeah, here we go. The Lich calls forth the spirits of creatures that died in its lair. These apparitions materialize and attack one creature that the Lich can see within 60 feet of it. The target must succeed on a DC 18 Constitution saving throw, taking 58, 15 D6 necrotic damage on a failed save. The apparitions then disappear. Oh, that's cool. This one's fun. The Lich targets one creature can see within 30 feet of it. Crackling cord of negative energy tethers the Lich to the target. When the Lich takes damage, the target must make a DC Constitution saving throw. Takes half the damage rounded down. And regains a spell slot. Sure, okay. So I like the idea of it like raising a bunch of dead or like doing something like that. Seems kind of neat. But this is about terrain. So it's slime in the previous version, and I think their instinct to say like this one shouldn't be slime because the Death Tyrant doesn't have any skin, right? It's like just a skull. I think is correct. I think you could do like skeletal arms burst from the ground, right? And like try to grapple on, like things like that, where it's still kind of reality warpy, but really it kind of shouldn't be, because the conceit, at least my conceit with the Death Tyrant, is that like the reason it does this, the reason it becomes undead, is because it wants to stop dreaming. It knows that eventually its death will come via a beholder that it dreams up, right? So it goes through this necrotic ritual to become undead, to prevent itself from dreaming. So it really shouldn't have reality warping powers, right? It should really instead have more necrotic, kind of lich-like powers. Let's see. I don't mind it, like, summoning apparitions, you know. I almost like the idea of, like, a, ooh, this is cool. What if the Death Tyrant... The Death Tyrant sends out a pulse. A necrotic pulse. Haunting Dreams is cool. Yeah, that's a good regional effect. All creatures within, you know, X feet, 60 feet or whatever of the Death Tyrant must make a Constitution save. On a failure counts as one failed death save. Yeah, all conscious creatures. I mean, you could even just do like all unconscious creatures fail their next death saving throw. Yeah. All unconscious creatures automatically fail a death saving throw. Right? So it's just like poof, out, and then like you're one step closer to death. I think that's cool. I think regional effect is good for Haunting Dreams. Haunting Dreams. So we don't have a terrain-focused one, I don't think, for the Death Tyrant. We've got the Spectral Eye, and we've got the walls that sprout tentacles. Meh. I like the idea of... And what I like about this Lair action is it's one you like hold in reserve until somebody goes out, and then you use it. So you're normally using the eye or whatever this one is. Like, I like the idea of summoning undead in some variety, right? Whether they're like an apparition or whether it's like spectral or ghostly or like skeletal hands that come up from the ground, you know. Oh, for the regional effect, let's maybe take a little detour. I know that the Gold Dragon has a dream thing, right? Let's look up the Gold Dragon. I always thought the Gold Dragon's regional effect and the Aboleth's one were kind of backwards. The Aboleth can like make itself appear to somebody, which I think is weird because like an Aboleth is like a horrible fish monster. So it's like you're dreaming and then it's like, like it feels very weird to me. Whereas the Gold Dragon making itself appear, that seems very mythological and cool. But the Gold Dragon I think can like oh, maybe not. I guess I thought it could do a thing where it could visit you in your dreams. Isn't there a dragon that can do that? No? I thought that there was somebody, one of the dragons could do that. I thought maybe it's the silver dragon? Oh no, here's the, I see, here's the gold dragon. No. Is it the green dragon? Oh no, here it is, yep. Whenever a creature that can understand a language sleeps or enters a state of trance, the dragon can establish telepathic contact. Yeah. Like, I always think that this should be the Aboleth's power, and that the Aboleth, and that the dragon should be able to appear to somebody within a distance of its lair. Yeah, that's silly. So that's good for that. We can do whenever a creature that can understand a language sleeps or enters a state of trance or reverie. I don't know why it's both of those different things within 6 miles of the beholder of the Death Tyrant's lair. The Death Tyrant can visit a nightmare upon them. Target must make a DC X Wisdom saving throw. And how does how does Dream the spell work? Dream. Circle of Death. Dream. Dominate. Dream. Wisdom saving throw on a failed save. The Phantasmal Monstrosity spawn a nightmare lasts the duration of the target's sleep. In addition, when the target wakes up. Yeah, okay, so you just do that thing. Makes DC save on a failure. On a failure, the target gains no benefit from their rest, and instead, and takes 36 psychic damage. It's just a spell dream. Cool. They can do it to everybody, right? Like, it's not like it has to target one person. It's every single person that rests might lose the benefit of their long rest and take some psychic damage. Okay, we need one more Lair action. I would like it to be something kind of mobility related. I don't want it to be spectral tentacles because that feels wrong. It's too simple just to say they're spectral ghosts, right? But it does seem like it should be summoning undead, right? Not gain any benefit. Yeah, Ooh, and 1 point of exhaustion. Oh my gosh. Gain 1 level of exhaustion. And take. Oh. I think we'll lose the psychic damage and have them gain 1 level of exhaustion. That's pretty nasty. Like, I feel like it should be summoning ghosts or something like that, right? Or yeah. That it creates minions, right? The Death Tyrant summons the souls of those it has slain to create 1d4 plus 1 spirits. These spirit how do you make the CR of a specter? Maybe it siphons off some of its life energy to make them, so it loses some hit points, right? But then it gets more actions. Spectre's like pretty low CR, so at the point at which you're fighting them, yeah, they're CR1. Siphons some of its life energy. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Siphons some of its life energy. To summon the specters of those it has slain. Summon 1d4 specters. So 1 specters of minions or adventurers it has slain. These summon specters for every 10 hit points the Death Tyrant chooses to lose. It creates 1 specter to a maximum of 5 specters. Once a specter dies, no, it's, yeah, I keep doing the British spelling. Specter dies, the beholder regains 10 hit points. Once the Death Tyrant, we'll say he regains 5 hit points. Once a Death Tyrant has used this Lair action, it can't use it again. It can't use it again until there are no specters remaining. Yeah, that's kind of cool, right? It like takes parts of its soul out. Yeah, that's neat. Okay, I feel pretty good about those. Yeah, I'm into all of that. I would love to think of like 5 more eye rays to round out this list, but then I think we did a pretty good job with our stream today, everybody. Hey, what's up, Nuker Wolf? You're just in time to help us brainstorm a bunch of random eye rays to put onto a table of random eye rays for our kind of new and improved beholder. Here's what we have so far. Banishing Ray, Blinding Ray, Insanity Ray, and then 4 different elemental ones. So freezing, fire, lightning, acid. We have Amnesia Ray as well, was one chat owner just came up with. So I would love to think of like 5-ish more. I mean, like 10 would be awesome, but if we can get 5 more, I'll feel pretty confident and at least be able to come up with the rest. I might leaf through the player's handbook looking for spell ideas, but go ahead and, if you have any thoughts, go ahead and shout them out. I'll see what we can find here. Ray of Sickness we kind of already have with the Death Tyrant. And that's the trick. The Death Tyrant also has a bunch that we came up with that are really cool. And I don't want to replicate any of the Death Tyrant ones. I want those ones to be unique. Phantasmal Force, Irresistible Dance, Resilient Sphere. Ooh, what about like a Hilarious Ray? And it's Tasha's Hideous Laughter, right? Replicates Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Mordecai's Private Sanctum, his Sword, Non-Detection. Just kind of looking at stuff. Mirror Image, like those are like illusions, which I don't quite feel makes sense. Mordecai's Faithful Hound. Healing Ray, Meld into Stone. I mean, it would be kind of funny if one of them was like a positive ray that like the beholder could point at itself, right? But there's a chance it randomly hits you with a healing ray. I kind of think the idea of a healing ray is funny, right? Restores X hit points. Intended to use on itself can be an just like a, you know, an accidental benefit. I think that's kind of funny. Major Image, Message, Meteor Swarm, Lightning Bolt we have, Levitate, Insect Plague probably doesn't make any sense. Hypnotic Pattern. Yeah, like Mesmeric Ray, maybe. That's kind of like Paralyzing Ray, right? Yeah. Mesmeric Ray. Similar to Hypnotic Pattern. Ooh, this is kind of cool. While using this ray, the beholder can only fire 2 additional rays, right? That it like can get a bunch of people, but it can't keep shooting, right? Like, yeah, that's cool. I like that. Because it has to maintain that one. Hex, Hold Person, Heat Metal. Excuse me. Wind, Hallucinatory Terrain, Hallow, Grease. I kind of like Slime Ray. Yeah, it like fills the floor with a goop. Slime Ray creates a grease-like effect on the ground, which then like also plays into one of our legendary actions, right? The grease. How do we have now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. I mean, like, ideally, 20 of them would be awesome, because then I would have a total of 30 that you could choose from, right? Let's get, like, a more powerful one. Glyph of Warning, Giant Insect, Freedom of Movement, Gaius. It's like Compulsion Ray is kind of interesting. Sort of like Charm Ray. Yeah, it's too similar to Charm Ray. Gaseous Form. Firebolt, Flame Strike, Flesh to Stone, right? Obviously, Forbidden, Force Cage, Flaming Sphere, Feign Death, Find Familiar, Finger of Death, Fireball, all kind of utility spells. Enthrall, Entangle, Evarad's Black Tentacles, Eye Bite. Okay. Panic to sleep. We have a sleep one already. Featherfall, feeble. Ooh, feeble mind is kind of cool. Yeah. We have an insanity ray, but I almost like the idea of like a how would you do that? What would the word for it? It wouldn't be enfeebling, because there's like ray of enfeeblement. But it would be like dumbification. Stupidity ray. Ooh, truth ray. Yeah, that's great. Yep, truth ray is really good. But that's kind of why I like Mesmeric Ray, right? Is that it's unusual in that way. That it's you can lock down a whole party with it. And you put in a thing where, like, if they take damage, it snaps them out of it, right? So, like, you kind of get a free hit on them if it maintains. Yeah, great. Good for interrogation. I love that. Yeah, feeble mind. I'm trying to think what's the word for it. It wouldn't be stupidity. It wouldn't be like nincompoop ray. But you know what I mean? It would be something like that. It's not enfeebling ray because you need the mind in there too. Whatever the name is, feeble mind ray. Feeble mind's a pretty powerful spell, so I feel like that's a high level ray, which is good, right? Loopy ray. I don't know about that. Feeble mind ray reduces the target's intelligence and charisma. Okay. Enthrall, entangle, dream earthquake. Ooh, shrinking ray. Yeah. Shrinking ray. I'm trying to think of like mad scientist stuff. That's kind of what we're talking about, right? Yeah, I like shrinking ray. Snaring strike, druidcraft. Dispelling ray. Oh, but we have the anti-magic con, so we don't need that. Dissonant whispers, dominating, instant summons, disintegrate, right? Teleporting ray. Right, like hits them, puts you up somewhere, or drops you, or like moves you to a different room. It's kind of cool. Demiplane, delay blast, fireball, dancing lights, darkness ray. Great globe of darkness. I guess that's kind of like blinding, yeah. Great undead, counterspell, creation, continual flame, contagion. We don't really have. I guess right. We have sickening ray. Although we have like leprous ray. I don't mind like sickening ray in some other context, right? Like it gives the poisoning condition, gives poisoned condition. Great. How many do we have now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. We're close. When you say loopy ray, Nuker Wolf, is that like what was I gonna say? Like a time travel thing where like they're stuck in a loop? Because that's actually kind of interesting. Oh, confusion ray. Duh. That's one of the ones that the spectator has. Confusion ray is great. Conjure elemental, compulsion, cone of cold, command, commune, color spray, cloud kill, clairvoyance, clone, dramatic orb, chain lightning, calm emotions, charm person, blink, blindness, deafness, blight, blinding smite, blade barrier, spectator. Yeah, thank you. Spectator has it. Bigby's hand, the hand ray. Banishment we have, nice. That was a good one. Aura of purity, aura of life, aura of Agathis, antipathy, sympathy. Oh, I see. Yeah. Anti-life shell seems pretty powerful. Anti-magic field, pretty powerful. Animal shapes. Aid, alarm, alter self, acid splash. I think I jumped over a bunch of them. Imprisonment. Old monster, haste. Oh no, I think we did these. Incendiary Cloud, inflict wounds, lesser restoration. Magic Mouth, Magic Circle. We're close. Mass Suggestion, Meteor Swarm. We've done a bunch of yeah, Mordecai, we did these. I think we started in like, Planar Binding, Prayer of Healing, Polymorph Ray, yep. Polymorph Ray, good. Power Word Kill, Prismatic Wall. Produce Flame, Reincarnate. Revivify, Resurrection. Oh, Reverse Gravity is a spell. Funny, I always thought Reverse Gravity was a Gravamancy or whatever spell. Graviturgy. I didn't realize it was right here. Cool. Seeming, Sequester, Shape Change, Shatter. I guess we don't have like a Thunder Ray, but eh. Shocking Grasp. Silent Image, Simulacrum, Sleep we have. Slow we have. Spike Growth, Speak with Plants. Spirit Guardian, Spirit Weapon, Stone Shape, Stinking Cloud. Suddenly you are a rabbit. Yeah, exactly. That's a great one. Suggestion, Sunburst, Swift Quiver. Come on, I think we need like 2 more. Toxicityous Laughter, Teleport. We have Telepathy, Telekinesis. We have Thaumaturgy, Thorn Whip, Thunderous Smite, Time Stop, Tongues, Transport via Plants, Tree Stride. Wait, what's interesting? Transport via Plants. And Tree Stride. It's a magical link between a larger inanimate plant within range and another plant. You must have seen it touched. Can step into the target plant and exit. What's the difference between that and Tree Stride? Why are those different spells? Transport via plants and Tree Stride are 2 different spells. What? That's crazy. True Strike, Unseen Servant, Tsunami, Vampiric Touch, A Vicious Mockery, Wall of Force, Wall of Fire. Come on, there's gotta be one more. I don't want to do Web Ray. That's weird. Ray, lose your creatures in their mind. Weird Ray just creates fear. Okay. Witch Bolt, Zone of Truth. I think that's it. Damn. Okay, let's look at effects. Blinded, Charmed, Deafened. Difference is distance. Yeah, for sure. But it just seems like Tree Stride and Transport via Plant. It's also a very silly spell name. Stunned, Restrained, Unconscious, Prone, Poisoned. Thunder Wave Ray? Yeah, like I think like a concussive ray is maybe the term for that. Concussive Ray. Okay, so how many do we have? Well, sure, I'm not saying there aren't differences between them, but I'm saying thematically they are almost the same spell, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There's 20. Did it. Nice, cool. So now we can make a table. I'll have to go through and I'll have to sort them into major and minor, right? Into like what they would be in what order, because I don't think you want to get completely random, because then you could get only really nasty ones or only really easy ones. But I like the idea of saying, you know, these are the, I think they maybe all have telekinesis because they needed to pick things up. But otherwise, I think it's, you know, these are the easy ones, these are the moderate ones, then these are the deadly ones. Yeah, that's cool. I love it. Okay, everybody. Hey, it's a shame because Nuker Wolf and Brent just got here, but we have just wrapped up our Monster Workshop. Thanks for coming and hanging out, everybody. It was awesome to brainstorm this stuff with you. Thanks to Shadowner and to Lex Mandrake and to Nuker Wolf and Brent for showing up at the last minute. Great. If you like this content and you haven't checked out our podcast yet, please do. You can find the link up above and the link down below. It is a weekly, semi-weekly talk show, D&D talk show podcast, where we talk about monsters. We go one monster a week, alphabetically through the monster manual, and we talk about what we like about them, what we don't like about them, how we can improve them, and then we come here on the stream every Thursday and we redesign that monster. So last week was the Beholder. This upcoming week is the Blight, the kind of like evil plant monsters from the Sunless Citadel. I really have to finish that episode because if you are a patron at our Patreon, $1 level gets you access to the episode early. So if you want to listen to it sooner rather than later, consider joining our Patreon. We are at $2.99 right now. If we could get one more $1 patron, that would push us to 300, which would be huge. So check out our Patreon. You can find us on Twitter down there. I'm at ProDMTimothy on Twitter. Hey, thanks, Brent. I'm glad you enjoy it. Yeah, we just had Mythomatic on a couple episodes ago. That was cool. We have another guest coming up. but I'm still in the market for looking for a few more guests. It turns out that it is very easy to find white nerdy dudes who want to talk about D&D, and I would love to get people who are not white nerdy dudes to see what their thoughts are, because I feel like we have a lot of the same kind of people on our show right now. So I'm looking for more guests, and that might slow down the rate at which they release, depending, because I would like to have a good distribution of just me episodes and just and guest episodes as well. Drew, okay, Shadow is trying to describe the difference. I agree. I understand that they are different spells. My point is, it's funny to me that they felt the need to make two separate spells for that, right? That, like, how often does that come up? I've never seen a player use Tree Stride in a game ever. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm saying that, like, it seems funny to me that they're like, Tree Stride and Transport via Plant need to be two separate abilities. They are separate. I'm not saying they aren't, but it's funny to me that that felt necessary to them. You can find us on Twitter, you can find us on Discord, on Patreon, and I'll be back here on Sunday with another stream. That is a world-building stream for my Dwarven campaign. I'm really excited for this one because we're going to do our first language stream. I have been working on Dwarven as a language kind of in the background for months and months now, and it's kind of half-formed, and, you know, not like any conlagger would look at it and be very disappointed with my grammar, but, you know, it doesn't have to survive that. It just has to be cool for my D&D game. But I love working on it. It's really fun. I like the sounds. I like making words. And so we're going to do a whole stream about just taking words from the chat and translating them and coming up with Dwarven phrases and stuff, because I love to do that for my upcoming game. So come check us out on Sunday. That'll be at 6 p.m. PST. But otherwise, you can find me on Twitter, Discord, Patreon, and you can even find me on my website, because I'm a professional dungeon master. You can hire me to run adventures for you, and you can hire me to throw one of these nasty new beholders at you if you have a masochistic bend, I suppose. Until then, though, thank you everyone for coming and watching, and hopefully we get to talk again soon. Stay tuned for next week's episode, which, if you're a patron, drops tomorrow, and if you're not, drops on Sunday. Until then, thank you so much, and happy adventuring.